So in this video, I'm going to share a few different free self-care tips and ideas that you can do to take care of yourself during this time without spending a lot of money. So the first is something that I struggled with for a long time, and that is saying no to something on your schedule. Most of us get really super busy and overwhelmed, and we have a number of responsibilities and things that we have to take care of in our daily lives. And then on top of that, we have all of the things that other people need us to do. So you probably have more things on your plate than you feel like you can take care of. So pick one thing and say no to it. Pick one thing that you're not feeling super into, that you really don't want to do, that you are feeling a little iffy about, or just on the fence, or even something you want to do, but is just going to be too much of a time commitment, and say no to that. Wipe it off your planner. Take that responsibility, take that time commitment off of you, and use that time instead for something that you need and feel will fulfill you in a better way. Say no to something for someone else and use that time for you. Saying no is really hard, but it's definitely a form of self-care, and it's something that a lot of us who are people pleasers don't naturally do, so it takes a little bit of practice to do. So I promise you, saying no doesn't feel great at first, but it is one of the most influential and best things you can do for yourself over time. Second is to tidy up your space. When I see clutter or clutter piles up, it can negatively affect my mental health. So taking the time to tidy up space, to clean, to do those things, I consider that a form of self-care. You might think of it as a chore as well, but it really is an act of self-care, because having a clean, tidy space is a way to take care of yourself. Clutter has actually been proven to negatively affect people's mental health. It's something that you can do to help yourself, and it's also a free thing you can do to give yourself a little boost. You'll get a little boost from the activity, from the exercise, and also from having that clean, clear, blank space in your house where things are put away and you're not looking at a big pile of mess. So this one you can actually combine with the last one. You can create an uplifting and positive kind of soothing playlist for yourself. I have a couple different playlists on both Spotify, Pandora, and YouTube that I go to when I'm feeling a little bit down, and they always give me a little bit of a pep, a little bit of feeling good, and music can definitely affect your mood. So what you're listening to is very important. I found a while back that when I was listening to political podcasts to try to be informed, but that definitely affected my mental state. And I realized when I cut that out and instead replaced it with music that I loved, that was soothing to me personally, it made a huge difference in my mental health. So when I listened to a nice playlist, I had a huge shift in my mental health. So creating a playlist that you love, that has music you are just really happy to listen to, is an act of self-care, and is something that can affect your mood in a very positive way. So the next free act of self-care that you can do is to cull your email list, your social media list, things you listen to, basically your consumption. Chances are you probably follow either some Instagram influencers or some email lists or some podcasts that you listen to for a certain reason, but they negatively affect you in another way. I wanted to listen to political podcasts to stay informed, but they were making me more anxious and more upset every day when I listened to them. So if it's having that negative effect on you, let it go. I highly recommend you take the time to do this act of self-care and go through the list of things that you follow online and cut out the ones that don't always give you the best vibes. It's okay to let go of things, even if you had a good reason for following them in the first place. Letting go of stuff is one of the best acts of self-care that I have learned how to do over time, and being able to let go of the things that you're putting in your mind will open up that space for more options. It will give you more creativity. It will give you more time. It will get rid of some of the negative emotions that following that stuff encourages in your brain. If someone's feed on Instagram or Facebook makes you feel worse, cutting that out, even if you're just hiding it, not unfollowing, even if you're just muting them so you don't see it every day, is an act of self-care, and it will make you feel a lot better. I've had to unfortunately do this with personal friends and other people that I follow on Instagram as inspiration or that are in my industry. I found myself either being jealous or upset almost every time I looked at their feed, so I hid them. And it's such a big boost to my mental health when I log into those apps that it's a big act of self-care to do so, and I highly recommend you do it as well. This free act of self-care is one that is really often mentioned on most of the lists I've seen, and that is to go take a walk. Walking is the best. It can be something that you don't maybe want to do if it's cold or rainy, or you're just feeling like down and lazy and don't have the energy to go for a walk. But almost every time that you say, no, I'm going to do this act of self-care and go for a walk, you feel better. Being outside, even if it's just around the park, around your neighborhood, around the block, it's invigorating, and it calms you as well, especially if you're in nature and you're able to walk in a place that is full of nature and just beautiful. That is a calming thing that you can do. Being outside can improve your mood. It is something that can make you feel better. It's something that can give you a little more energy, because that walk will give you more energy as well. And it's just all around something that's good for you. It's also good for your health, but I stopped looking at walking as exercise and looked at it as self-care. So every day I have to take a walk as an act of self-care, and that really changed how I looked at going outside, going for walks. Similar to walking, you can do stretching. Stretching is a huge, huge benefit. And a lot of us think that, like, if you can't do a full workout and you can't really do a full yoga class, that is not beneficial. But stretching is one of those things that, like, a little bit goes a long way. And if you can put in little stretching breaks throughout your day, every time you're feeling a little like stressed and like you feel your shoulders bunching up, or you feel like stress in your body, stretching is a great way to relieve that tension, and it is a great way to get your body moving and your blood flowing without doing something crazy. Stretching is also something you can do really quickly, just where you're sitting. So it's a highly recommended way to do some self-care in the moment that is free. Obviously, you don't need it to pay to do stretching. Of course you can go to yoga. I personally go to yoga classes and it's really helpful, but you can do a lot of those things in the moment really quickly and treat it as a form of self-care. One great act of self-care that is free is to actually spend time giving to other people in an encouraging way. Sending positivity into the world, I find this such a great act of self-care, because it's really a win-win for both you and another person. You are giving them some positivity, you're giving them a little boost in their day, and it is so encouraging to get random messages from friends and family saying, I'm thinking about you, or you know what, you did this really well last week, or I've seen your work lately and it's amazing, or just telling them that you love them and how much they mean to you. When you give this to someone else, even if you feel terrible, you tend to get a little bit of a boost, because making other people happy is so much fun. Giving a positive experience to another person, giving them a message of love, of encouragement, is something that can make you feel better as well. And that's an act of self-care, because you're both working on relationships, which is so important to your overall mental well-being and your physical health, all of it. This is a great act of self-care because it gives you a little boost in the moment. You feel a little bit better, but it also nurtures the social relationships that are so important to your overall well-being and your longevity, your happiness, because we're social people, most of us. We have to have some level of relationships with other people to survive and thrive. And doing this act of self-care builds those up in a way that we don't necessarily think of doing all the time. But when you make it a practice of self-care and you make it part of your lifestyle because it's taking care of you, you will definitely reap the benefits of it. And it's something that makes other people happy too. That's so fun. Not only can you send messages of encouragement and compliments to others, but one free act of self-care is to compliment yourself. Most of us have a pretty negative self-talk. I feel like, I know I do. I definitely am pretty negative toward myself. I'm able to ignore people on YouTube because I will say way worse things to myself than a stranger on the internet would ever say to me. Hate comments don't really bother me because you can't be as mean to myself as I am. And that is unfortunately pretty harsh. And I find that I'm not the only one like that. And most of us to some level have a slightly negative bent to our inner talk because we are so used to the messages from the media and from advertising saying that we're not enough. So it's very common, especially with women, to have this kind of negative conversation in your head at all times. So as an act of self-care, I like to force myself to give myself compliments. This is really awkward at first, and if you're not used to it, it might not feel normal, but as an act of self-care, I make myself tell myself good things about myself. Basically, I make myself compliment myself. And if you're watching, I would love for you to just take a minute and give yourself a compliment. Give yourself one compliment during this video. Tell yourself something that is amazing about yourself. And if you are brave enough, or if you have a YouTube account, I would love to hear what it is down in the comments. So leave your compliment about yourself in the comments. I would love to read them. It's always so fun to see what other people come up with. This act of self-care definitely can feel weird at first, and you might not even believe any of the things you're saying. But over time, you get more used to giving yourself compliments. You get used to that idea that you're worthy, that you have good qualities, that you have good habits about yourself. And over time, you definitely believe them a little bit more. So it's a practice that a lot of these are practices, so you have to do them over and over and over, but it's a free way to kind of give yourself a boost and to take care of yourself. Next is to express your feelings freely. This is something that is an amazing act of self-care, but it's something that most of us don't do. Most of us struggle because we keep our emotions inside, because we feel like we can't share them freely. We aren't in a safe place to share them freely. We've been told that we shouldn't have these emotions, and that is what leads a lot of people to really negative mental health situations. So take the time, take this act of self-care to express them. Find a journal, write it out. Start a Google Doc, write it all out. If you can't save it, if you're scared someone's gonna see it or someone's gonna find it, delete it, burn that page, delete the Google Doc, but give yourself the freedom to write it out, to say it, to express it, to get it out of your mind, to get it out into the world. Having that freedom is such a great act of self-care. It's okay to feel anger, to feel jealousy, to feel envy, to feel sadness, to feel lonely, to feel all of the negative emotions. It's okay to feel happy. It's okay to feel amazed, to feel joy, to feel wonder, to feel all the good emotions. Whatever those strong emotions are, make sure that you're giving yourself the freedom to express them and to get them out of just your mind, to get them on paper, to get them in the world. Self-care is learning how to feel all of our emotions, to feel the things that are driving our actions, and having the ability to express, to actually acknowledge what you're feeling is such a strong form of self-care. You're gonna feel the effects in other parts of your life, so you won't be spending uncontrollably because you feel sad. Okay, and I'm a financial channel, so of course I'm talking about free things to do, but some of these things like expressing your emotions freely tend to lead to benefits in other areas. So if you're a huge spender, emotional spender, so when you feel sad, you go try to buy things to like fill that feeling up, to get rid of it. So if you're instead able to learn how to express that emotion, to accept it, to let it go, you won't necessarily need to go buy things to fill that up and try to fix it. So it's definitely an act of self-care, this one, to express your emotions freely and accept them. That will lead to benefits in other areas, financially and otherwise. And the final free act of self-care that you can do is to make a gratitude list. So making a gratitude list is something that I started years and years and years ago, before even therapy or anything, but every day I would just write down 3 things that I was grateful for that day. I recently looked back at my notebooks back from 2013 where I started this practice, and I realized that even on my greatest days, my like most amazing, happiest days, and my worst days where I was just so down from things that were happening, I always had at least 3 things to be grateful for. I always had good things in my life. No matter what else was going on, there were always things to be grateful for. And that kind of gave me a better understanding of how life works overall, and how that even when I am in a really, really low place, there are things that are in my life that are good. And that is really helpful for someone that can kind of fall to the all or nothing thinking, where it's like everything is terrible and catastrophic and just terrible, and nothing will ever be good again. When you think something like nothing will ever be good again, but you're forcing yourself to do the act of self-care by acknowledging things you're grateful for and good things in your life, that kind of counteracts the negative side where you're like, oh, everything's terrible. So if you've never tried a gratitude habit, I highly recommend it. It's a great free thing you can do every single day. It's something you can do with a family member or your children. It's something that we now do with our daughter. So every day we ask her like one thing that she was happiest about that day, or one thing that she was thankful. We don't really use the word thankful because she doesn't understand it as a 3-year-old, but we try to focus on the one best thing of her day. So the one thing. And then when we say her prayers at night, we say we're thankful for that one good thing. And that has really been something that's been a great way to teach it to her, but also to reinforce it in our own lives. My husband and myself, we both are able to do that with her and just make sure that we as well are thinking about it in our own lives. So these are just a few of the ways that you can take care of yourself without spending any money. There's a lot of different ways to do self-care, and they don't necessarily need to be things that you spend money on. Yes, it's nice to, have a spa day or to give yourself a trip, but these things that you can do every single day or do every so often will definitely give you as many benefits as any of the things that are luxuries that are self-care that we've been sold are the only option.